Hey guys, today's episode is actually another podcast, Develop Yourself, where my business partner and I, Brian, talk about a lot of things to do with tech. I brought that in to this podcast, to the Easier Said Than Done podcast, so that you can have the video version of it with some edits and some annotations where necessary. So, hope you enjoy. Welcome to Easier Said Than Done with me, Zubin Pratap, where I share with you my journey from 37-year-old lawyer to professional software engineer. The goal of this podcast is to show you how to actually do those things that are easier said than done.
On the Develop Yourself podcast today, I got my buddy Zubin fresh off a trip to Japan where he was skiing, and he probably missed all the AI news. I don't know if you heard about all the AI news hype. Were you aware?
Definitely did not miss the stuff about Zuck saying what he did, or at least the excerpt. The thing with this though, Brian, is I'm so sick of the news doing this for the
Me
last
too, a
30
little
years
bit.
where they just excerpt one bit and they don't give you all the context and they only report one part of it. But yeah, let's talk about that, man. Like it's such a one-sided presentation of what's going on.
Oh, man.
Sure.
I feel bad for new coders because first we had the NVIDIA CEO saying, don't learn to code. Then we had Dev and AI, which didn't really hit the mainstream as much, but it was this AI code bot that was supposed to be able to like do all the things that coders do. And now apparently it'll do tasks for like $8 an hour. And it's not really taken off in the way they expected it. And now the latest thing, this one hit the mainstream hard. Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
we got Mark Zuckerberg saying, this year or the next 5 years max, we'll have AI replacing mid-level engineers. And when I heard this, I was like, wait, what? Like, are we talking about the
Yeah.
same mid-level engineers? What is your take on this? What do you think when you hear this thing? Because a lot of people, they're not just laughing it off. This is seriously discouraging a ton of people.
Yeah. My question to those people is, what else are you going to do? Honestly, it's a real question. What are
Mhm.
you going to do? So I was in Japan this time. The amount of automation that I saw there. So let me give you an overview of my last 36 hours, right?
Okay.
Japan airport, all the check-in was done through machines and AI, okay? All the passport control and immigration control was facial recognition and AI, okay? The border control folks aren't sitting there manning these things that much anymore. I got back to Australia, the immigration side of it, again, border control, all facial recognition and the smart chip on my passport.
Hmm.
I went to the supermarket to stock up on groceries yesterday. All the checkout is now one person for about 22 self-serve checkout machines. Okay. So what are we going to do? Like this is the reality of it. I've been a lawyer for a long time. All my legal friends are worried about AI. I
Oh
know my
man.
friends in accounting and audit are worried about AI.
Yeah.
When I dislocated my shoulder a year ago, the radiologist who's looking at the x-rays was worried about AI. Right? Sales and marketing people are worried about AI.
Hmm.
Writers and authors are worried about AI. Content creators are worried about AI. Video editors are worried about it. So what are you going to do? I mean, this is a ridiculous way to analyze the world because technology has always changed everything for most people.
Yeah.
What's different this time is historically it's been a lot of manual blue collar work that got changed and automated. For the first time, we've got knowledge workers
Hmm.
being automated, right? What are you going to do? If you don't want to be an engineer and that's totally legitimate, then find something else that's not going to be affected by AI. And what's that going to be?
Wind turbine
Like going back
technician
to
is
plumbing?
the fastest
Yeah,
growing occupation in the US
yeah.
apparently.
100%. And maybe it pays pretty well until the market saturates, then it won't pay that well.
Yeah, exactly. There's
But
not enough wind turbines, I don't think, to support a
correct.
boot camp style program for wind turbine technicians. But you have a great
Correct.
point.
And that's why
Mhm.
Brian, when I was doing Inner Circle on my own, and I know you've done this as well, a huge component of this is learning how to learn. Because whether you're an engineer or not, the speed at which you have to adapt to market changes is faster than ever before in history.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode, and I want to let you know that becoming a developer in 2025 is not going to look like becoming a developer in 2024. There is an overload of information, AI tools out there, so much conflicting social media BS that it's hard to understand what you really need to do. If you're interested in working with me and my partner Zubin in a very private, exclusive mentorship program where we teach you not just how to code, but how to reinvent yourself as a career changer and help you make a successful transition from your previous life into tech, we want to talk with you. This program is not easy, it is not short, but it is effective. If you want to schedule a talk directly with me or Zubin, just go to the show notes, parsity.io/inner-circle. Back to the show.
There was a time in Fortune 500 companies, this is about 50 years ago, the average lifespan was north of 50 years. And in the last 25 years, the average lifespan of a Fortune 500 company has shrunk to 14.
Wow.
Like we're talking about enormously short, compressed timeframes for vast amounts of change. I mean, I remember Blackberries. Do you
Oh
remember
yeah, for
Blackberries?
sure.
Yeah, yeah. What happened to them? What happened to Nokia? Well, I mean, these are companies. What happened to Kodak?
Oh my God, I forgot
Instantly,
about
these guys were
Kodak.
wiped away,
Yeah.
right?
Jeez.
This happens. The pace of change is accelerating, and so the only way to get around this is either switch back to blue collar work. Oh, by the way, last night I was watching, catching up the highlights of CES,
Yeah.
right, the Consumer Electronics Show. Farming being automated,
Really?
right? Of course. I mean, they're going to have GPS and AI enabled farming bots that are going to do everything for you.
Oh, that I mean,
Sure,
that makes a ton of sense to be completely
makes a
honest
ton
with
of
you. You
sense.
can it's something that seems to be ripe for automation. It's consistent,
Of course.
it's pretty deterministic, right? The times you plant crops and seeds and the spaces between these are all things I imagine. I don't know anything about farming. But
100%. And there's, weather data available. There's
oh yeah,
other
right?
geospatial
Hmm.
data available. There's enough crop pattern data available that you can train models. Of course, all of these things are going to be done. Of course, I mean, if podcasts can now be
Oh,
automated
YouTube videos,
with
yeah.
Google Notebook alone, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all going to happen. Now the question is it going to be good enough that human beings are genuinely replaced across the board? I believe not. And maybe this is the lawyer in me speaking, but at some point in time, when proverbial shit hits the fan,
Hmm.
you can't sue an AI. You've got to sue a human being. You got to
Yeah.
have a human being that's accountable in a court of law or under a regulatory system that needs to be held accountable. And so human beings will always be part of the equation. We're just going to be augmented. I remember when I started my legal career, we had pools of people in the typing pool. We had pools of people who were just there to type because the older school lawyers weren't fast enough at
Oh
typing
yeah.
one finger at a
Yeah,
time,
my mom
right?
used to do this. She was a stenographer.
Right.
Yeah.
Stenos,
Yeah.
exactly. What happened to the stenos? They've just disappeared, right? Because most people now grew up typing on computers, so they're
Hmm.
fast enough. Even if they're not formally trained with all in 8 fingers, they can still type fast enough with
100%.
three,
Yeah.
right? The world survived that. Like this is just going to keep happening,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't want to be in software, don't be in software. That's totally legitimate.
Yeah.
But if you think you've got a place you can run and hide that's going to be better, you're probably mistaken.
Oh man, yeah, that's like my big thing. And like, one, do whatever you want, right? Like within reason, right? Like if you find some joy in an occupation, like I found a lot of joy in coding, and I'm like, well, if I can get paid for this, even better, right? And I can pay handsomely, I'm totally down. I'm gonna take this route, and I'm going all in. If you
Yeah.
were in it strictly for the money, I think that short period we had where you could go and learn some basic front end, and the market was so like desperate during that small period in the pandemic,
Yeah.
that's over. That whole boot campization period, I think we're done with that, and that's probably for the best. But I just,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't see a way that you can hide whatever. I saw this YouTube video from this dude. I did a reaction to it. I don't want to become a reaction YouTube channel, but this guy, like, it was so indicative of what's going on in people's headspaces. Like this guy has 100 followers, right? And the video he did was like, I spent 2,500 applications. I'm a CS grad. Don't get into CS. The market's cooked. No one is hiring. And I'm like, one, this is not true, right? Like employment, all you have to do is go to the Bureau of Labor and look at the employment statistics and realize that
Exactly.
like the software
Exactly.
developers are well employed, right? But then it's really tough to discern what's reality and what's like YouTube and like where and these. I don't want to discount the people's stories because I'm sure they're real and they're not just doing this for clicks and views. Some of them are, but it's really tough to tell like what's real and what's not. And then I think even further, I'm like, do people understand what a mid-level software engineer does? When I think of a mid-level software engineer, I think of somebody that's pretty proficient in a language or two, can be pretty autonomous, kind of work with little direction, take a set of tasks or a large feature like a product manager and says, I want something. And they can pluck out this idea and then turn it into a set of instructions and features and then translate that to code, which may be actually the smallest piece of this puzzle.
100%. 100%.
And it's, sometimes
100%.
I'm like, I don't think people know what software engineers do because I see the most fear coming from the most junior people or people that have not worked in the market or quote
Yeah.
unquote normies, people that don't work in software at all or understand what they think. We just like sit at a
Correct.
computer and type all day. And you
Yeah.
were at Google, and I'd like to like know, was your day spent like 8 hours coding?
Hi, if you want a no BS insight into how to change your career, whether to code or something else, and how to actually get job opportunities in tech, then please subscribe and like. It's no BS because I have zero incentive to mislead you. I just want to help you and give you tons of value so that you will consider working with me to get to your next career. Take a look at the description text below to learn more about the training I offer. But I do post content here regularly, and by subscribing and liking and hitting that notification bell, you will get to know when I post new industry insights for you. You'll also know within about 3 seconds if you want to learn more, but at least you won't miss out. Oh, and please follow me on LinkedIn too. I pretty much post there every single day. Just look for my name, Zubin Pratap. All right, so please like and subscribe to this channel, and let's get back to the episode.
They think we just like sit at a
Correct.
computer and type all day. And you
Yeah.
were at Google, and I'd like to like know, was your day spent like 8 hours coding?
No.
Okay.
I mean, on a really good day, I may have written, I don't know, 50 lines of code. Like,
This is reality.
because most of the this is reality.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, it's with these giant FANG companies, right, Brian? It's not the fairest comparison sometimes, because like Google's got the largest monorepo on the planet.
Wow.
It's so big it doesn't fit in memory, it doesn't fit even on a laptop. Everything's done in the cloud because it's too big to fit in the average laptop. It's I think 3.5 TB of code, right? And so it's just massive. So everything's different about their system. So most of the time you're poking around trying to say, right, this little patch that I'm looking at, I need to first understand what the heck it does and how it fits
Yeah.
in. Right? That's 99% of the time you're spending in the code base. And you spend maybe 30% of your time in the code base. The rest of the time is design documents, consulting with other senior experienced engineers to say, hey, this is how I'm approaching this problem. Give me feedback on this. Is this design right? Is this approach right? What have I missed? What have I not thought? So it's a lot of thinking and a lot of analysis. And I think this is exactly to say, not many software engineers are that worried about AI. In fact, most software engineers I've met, and
Mhm.
again, this is a small
For
sample
sure.
size
Yeah.
of the number of engineers Zubin's met. It's tiny,
Yeah.
obviously, compared to the global proportion. They're excited about AI for the same reason I am. The stuff that I really didn't enjoy, which is Googling endlessly, typing in,
Oh my God.
keystroke by
Yeah.
keystroke, all of that's gone, right? Like, it's just so much faster. The big thing for me now is to decide what needs to be done. Exactly as you said, how do I convert the business requirements, the scope and specs into actual code,
Mm-hmm.
and then to review the code of the AI. So what's really happening
Mm-hmm.
is I've got a minion.
Yes.
I've
It's
got
a
a
good
minion that
analogy.
does the yeah, that does my keystrokes for me, and I have to check its work.
Oh yeah, you better
That's
check
what's
its
happening.
work because oh my
Oh,
and
100%.
oh, as soon
100%.
as you get past anything like trivial, like I sometimes will reprompt it with a block of code about 300 lines, and I've seen between the 200 line spot, things are fairly okay. You get
Yeah.
above 300 lines of code, and I pay for ChatGPT, so I'm paying for the paid version, and it gets
Yeah.
wonky, and it gives you okay stuff, but you cannot just directly take that and put it into code. And now that I'm actually working with OpenAI at work, I'm actually starting to work with like vector databases. I've learned a little bit of linear algebra to understand how
Yeah.
embedding works. So basically taking a set of strings and words and then tokenizing them
Tokenizing.
and
Yeah.
then looking at their similarity. And I'm like, I don't know any math, but I'm very interested in this stuff because I'm like, oh, this is how it works. And so I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this is math essentially under the hood, statistics and
Yeah.
linear algebra at scale. And that at scale part is something that's still a black box to me. But I'm using it and I'm thinking this is really cool. But this idea of like agents, right? There's an idea of agents. Like you can have one agent that will talk to another
Yeah.
AI agent, and they each will have some different tasks that they can perform. And people think that's going to completely wipe away software developers. But then simple
Yeah.
statistics, if people do this mental exercise with me, if an agent has a 90% chance of giving you a correct answer, and it passes you to
Yeah.
the next agent, which has a 90% success rate, and to the next agent, then that will be 0.9 of 90%, then you have 90% of 90%. And then by the time you get down to
Yeah.
like more than a few agents, you're at less than half of a
Correct.
correct
Of a confidence
answer
score.
that could
Yeah.
be done.
1000%. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's totally. And the thing is, I mean, when Cursor came out, and I use both Cursor and Copilot,
Okay.
I use the paid version for both. I
Hmm.
keep switching between the two IDs just to keep myself, like I said, I believe learning new tools is the solution to staying relevant,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I'm coding now, I use both Cursor and VS Code. Depending on the day and the mood, I'll just open up one so that I learn new key bindings, I learn
Okay.
new IDEs,
Uh-huh.
so I just switch between the two. And they're both kind of similar. Sure, so Cursor Compose, when I got it to try and build something for me, I now realized that it can't, because there's too much information in my head that I need to give it. By the time I
Hmm.
give it a solid prompt and combine the odds of hallucinating with that, it's probably not going to just build something non-trivial. Sure, if I wanted to do a web form, which I consider to be fairly trivial but fiddly and
Oh
annoying,
yeah.
it can do it. right?
Mhm.
But the moment I get it to work on an existing code base with a large enough system and have to fit everything in the code base into its context window and then give it a prompt, I'm spending so much time prompting and fixing that it's actually way better for me to not tell it, hey, just do this for me, and instead flip it to my next step is this.
Yeah.
If I had normally I'd have to Google it, this is just an augmented Google search and say, how do I do this quickly, right? And then I review its answer, and I'm in a position to know if its answer is likely to be correct or wrong. But then that's the same situation you're in with a Stack Overflow search or a
Oh,
Google
yeah,
search.
same thing.
Is you experiment with things and it doesn't always work. So I keep telling the mentees in our program, I keep telling them, I'm like, guys, if you are not prepared to be a code reviewer, don't just use the AI. Only use your co-pilots and cursors of the world if you're in a position to review the code as though you're approving a pull request.
Yep.
It's your responsibility to approve this code. If you don't know what's going on there, then don't just rely on that, because it'll build a lot of stuff for you, but it'll also wreck a lot of stuff for you and you won't know, and then you have no idea how to debug. And that's something I'm genuinely worried about
Oh, yeah.
a little bit, and maybe I'm being old school,
Mhm.
is that we're losing a lot of the junior engineers are losing the ability to reason about code and debug simply because they're not getting stuck long enough,
Oh,
right?
yeah. That
Simply because they're
pain,
not getting stuck.
you gotta feel that pain to, like, really get through it. Yeah.
And there's so much learning in trial and error. In fact,
Mhm.
trial and error is far more rich as an information source than just getting it right the first time and not knowing why what you pasted worked. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so much more. You got to stub your toes a few times
And your brain
before you
remembers it better
understand.
apparently too. Like like when you have
100%,
something
yeah,
bad happen, like your brain has this tendency, your Neanderthal ancestors of like remembering, oh, there's something bad happened. I must keep remember this
correct.
forever. And if you don't ever have that pain, you're right,
Totally.
you just forget it. Like, oh yeah, it wasn't that was easy. And then Stack Overflow goes down or Chat GPT goes down, which it will. I have a feeling,
It-
not to I don't have any dog in this fight. I don't know if they can be profitable. They're already not. I'm wondering, is there a future where they aren't around? I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. None of us do.
Well, you look at Stack Overflow search, or its trends, analysis,
Hmm.
and there's been a huge drop since
That
the latter half of
yeah.
2022. It's not that people are less interested in R or Python or JavaScript or Golang. It's not that. It's just that people switch behaviors,
Yep.
right? And that's why Google searches now have a Gemini
The
summary on the
summary,
top,
yeah.
right? The AI summary is there, and they're very good because they avoid you having to drill down into multiple pages or links and go down all these wrong paths. That
Oh, yeah.
9 times out of 10 they give you a great starting point, and that's because what's happening is that AI LLMs are being used as an alternative to search to get results, because there is a lot of junk on the internet, which
Mhm.
goes back to the point you raised earlier, is when people are following YouTube and all of this stuff, the reason they're getting discouraged is because they've confused opinions and clickbait for facts,
Yeah.
right? The only data worth looking, whether it's historically, whether people are selling snake oil at the corner of X and Y streets, or whether people are selling career advice, the only thing that matters is genuine data. So the Bureau of Labor and Statistics,
Yeah.
good place to start,
Yeah.
right? Even TrueUp, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, TrueUp has this really interesting graph where they show the decline in jobs as measured from 2022,
I've seen
right?
that, and I've seen you comment on it, and I'm curious to hear your comment on it now.
Well, I'm just like, they started measuring
At the
in
peak.
the middle of 2022 at the peak and said, oh my God, look
Yeah,
at
look
how
at
much the
this.
jobs have dropped. The thing is that they don't tell you is it's dropped back to normal pre-pandemic levels. What happened was, in the pandemic there was such a huge spike of demand,
Yeah,
and it
that graph
coincided
is
with other
really
economic
missing.
factors.
Yeah, they need
it's
to have
it's
that other
missing
half.
everything
Yeah,
before 2022. It's so misleading.
it
And I'm
really is.
to me, that's like saying the human, you had a fever, you had a really high fever, you started measuring the baseline from the point when your fever was at its highest,
Yeah.
and now you said, oh my God, my body is cold. It's not. It's gone back to normal temperature, you doofus, because you started measuring at the height of your fever. That's kind of what they did on Trump. If you don't take the broader context into perspective, I think as of this morning on TrueUp, for example, or yesterday, I think there were what, a quarter of a million
Yeah,
open
quarter million
jobs
open
available.
jobs in tech, and that's according to the MIA. I use that site quite a lot to look at the trends, and it seems fairly accurate. But also, I don't think they're capturing every job out there. But of course, there's so many jobs that will never be posted or might not be
No, and
classified as tech jobs or software jobs that
correct, and
completely
that's
are.
only. I mean, it's not only in the US; it's also in some global, but it's very US centric.
Yeah,
But also, a quarter of a million jobs is plenty. All of us will probably have 6 or 7 or 10 jobs over a lifetime, not even close to. So,
yeah,
a quarter of a million means there's enough opportunity What's different, and again, I saw this in the law too, Brian, is there was a time in the law, Brian, when people didn't actually need to have a legal degree to practice. Like they didn't have to go to law school and be
I
admitted.
didn't know
There was a
this.
time in the law. Yeah,
Okay.
well, this is the thing, and there was a time in medicine, if you go back far
Oh,
enough,
yeah.
where
Yeah, this is true.
you didn't need, to
Yeah.
be an MD to practice medicine. You just got
Just
to
let
learn,
their
right?
blood out. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, correct. Exactly. Stick a bunch of leeches
Yeah.
and
See what
they'll
happens.
feel better, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, see what happens. So this is how all industries have evolved. The bar keeps getting higher the more people get interested in it.
Hmm.
Right? That's what's happening. So now, and this is why you and I have teamed up, it's not enough to learn to code. You have to know how to separate yourself from the marketplace. So how do you beat the existing coders at the game that is getting interviews, which is the first step,
Hmm.
and then doing well at interviews, and then managing your career after that? Because there are plenty of engineers who are miserable at what they do.
This is
You
true.
don't want to leave an existing career, go into a new career, repeat your old mistakes and patterns, and be miserable again. That's a huge penalty to pay for
Oof.
not having thought through what it is you want. So, learning to code is like one piece of the puzzle. And then after that, learning how to compete in a marketplace. And again, going back to my original comment, there aren't too many jobs that give you the flexibility, the intellectual satisfaction, the growth and creativity, the high quality people to work with
Hmm.
because it's attracting so many people. Part of the reason I left the law is in the 90s, the law was attracting some of the best people. Come 2010, the law was no longer attracting some of the best people. Tech was, right? I wanted to work with the best
Ah,
people I could find.
okay.
And that's just the natural state of things. So
Ah,
it attracts great people. It pays really well compared to everything else. It pays pretty darn well.
yeah.
Yes, it's getting harder to get into. That's 1000% true of every job.
Oh, yeah.
1000% true of every job. I mean, we've got 8.3 billion people on the planet. Were we really thinking this is going to get easier as the population grew? No.
Yeah. I think that's the big too, which is kind of my other. I'm in a few other Reddit threads, so I do this for work. Sometimes I'm in a procurement thread. I'm in a sales thread for marketing. If you read some of the posts from people, I'm a grad and I can't get a job and I've applied to 1,000 places. Please look at my resume. And you think, oh, CS grad. No, it's procurement or it's
Yeah.
sales. And it's
Yeah.
I think the secret here or the takeaway is that everybody's having a hard time. Also, the internet has exposed us to people's individual circumstances. It used to be you'd by yourself and you'd be like, man, things suck. And you talk to your friend like, oh, I got a job. You say, okay, well, maybe things aren't so bad. But then you go
Yeah.
on the internet now, you can like commiserate with people that have a video with 30,000 likes on it and say, oh my God, this is my experience. And everybody must be feeling this way too. So it makes you feel like you're not alone. And it really, yeah, amplifies these voices that have the worst experiences, unfortunately. That's who gets amplified. It's not the person with a boring story. Like, hey, I got hired after a year. That's boring.
No. Nobody ever wants that. No,
No,
and same thing happened with all the layoffs, right? So I know someone at Google, for example, who got laid off, and then 5 months later, she got rehired for 30% more in a different part of the organization. So that never gets reported.
no.
What gets reported is that Google laid off whatever,
Yeah.
6,000
Hmm.
people or whatever. They don't tell you that 2,000 of those got rehired elsewhere. I mean, I'm making up numbers here. I
For
don't know
sure.
the
Yeah.
actual numbers, but that does happen quite a lot. And when I was in Copenhagen last year for work, and I met two youngsters, 22, 23. One, I think, had an IT and a cybersecurity background, and the other one had an environmental engineering background or something. And they'd been looking for a year. The reality is, it is really hard for fresh grads now. But
Yeah.
to be honest, every generation, fresh grads have thought it was really hard. I mean, the conversation that I hear from the US a lot, all the student debt, and
Oh,
so many
yeah.
college students don't get a job.
Yeah.
That conversation's been going on, what, 40 years now? It
Yeah,
was
it's
there in
not
the
new.
90s.
It's just the internet
It's
has
not a
really
new
made things
conversation.
feel newer than they used to be, like H-1Bs and like outsourcing. Like I was talking to guys that said, "Oh, in the '90s that was a big fear," and then in the 2000, I forget when the 2010s, late 2010s, I felt like that was another round of that fear. Now I feel like it's the same story. I'm like, geez, we're still talking about this. Also, H-1B is not just for tech, by the way. It's for doctors and
No.
lawyers, rocket scientists, all sorts of
Yes.
specialized fields.
What happens is, because most of us are, a lot of the younger folks weren't around when the last time these cycles happened. They weren't aware the last time the news cycle happened that it was the same topic. It was the
Same
same
topic.
principle. It was
Yeah.
the same, same political issue around it. And now, because they get all their news on 20-second TikTok, assuming, well, TikTok's now gone dark for a while, but let's see what
Yeah.
happens,
It's
on
back.
Instagram or
Yeah,
whatever.
sure.
It's back.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, overnight, this is what
Right.
happens
Yeah.
when you go
See?
to sleep. TikTok comes back. Yeah. So, but if everyone's getting their news sources from 20-second sound bites, they're not going to know their history. They're not going to have the overview of actually what's going on from a policy perspective. And it goes back to the fact that youngsters have always found it really hard to break into the market, which is why I've been saying, and I've got a really shitty YouTube video on this, saying that career, and I think a free code camp
I'm
article
gonna I'm
also,
gonna
that
link to this in the show notes, by the way, for sure.
yeah, let me see if I can find
Yeah,
it and give
you
it to you.
have to.
But career changes have an advantage if you know how to leverage that advantage, because you're not a new grad. Okay, you have what's known
Hmm.
as workplace maturity. You have runs on the board. You have a prior track record. Is it the same for everybody? No. Somebody's been driving trucks for a living and never been in a corporate environment is not going to have the same corporate work experience that somebody who's, let's say, been an accountant,
Sure.
right, or been in sales or procurement or something. So many career changes do have significant advantages. A 22 or 23-year-old today does not have those advantages. They have a bunch of student debt, and they're coming into a market which is leery of employing people because they don't know where the AI thing is going, not just in tech, in everything.
Everything.
There is not a single 22 to 25-year-old person I've met in the last year who feels optimistic that they're going to get employed. Not one.
Yeah.
Okay, because the world has changed when it comes to that. So if you're in your 30s and you're looking to change career, don't be crazy and give up the existing job you have. Hold on to it,
Hmm.
because it's better to change career when you're employed than when you're unemployed.
Oh yeah.
If it takes an extra 6 months, who cares? Do it. That's why we do the program the way we do for 12 months,
Yeah.
is so that people can hold on to their jobs and not risk their income and their families, and then systematically build a plan, not just to learn the technical stuff, because that's not the hard part, and the ais can do that as well. Now it's to learn that, and then know how to market yourself, and then know how to build a career where you will always be in the top 20% of applicants, so that even if you get laid off, which you probably
Which you
will,
probably will.
statistically
It's just
speaking,
this
we all have,
reality. Yeah.
it's the reality of the world. And again, that's not new. That's been around for 30 years too. So you're probably going to get laid off at least once in the course of your career. If you know how to manage your career to a point where you're not worried beyond a point about that happening, it's going to take maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, but you will get hired back again because you're that good. You're in the top 20% of any market. Then you don't have to worry. There's no job security anymore. This is what one of the students put in the assignments I was reviewing last night. Is they, I think it was Miguel actually, and they said, oh, for me, job security, I realize that companies can lay you off at any point in
Yeah.
time, so that's not what job security is. But job security to me is being able to be rehired or hired at any point in time.
Spot on.
That's not actually job security.
Hmm.
That's actually just personal security, that you're employable.
Yeah.
It's very different from job security. It's just being employable.
Yeah.
Now, being employable is a whole super skill to have. And it has nothing to do with just the coding bit, because that's table stakes,
Yeah.
right? You have to know how to be employable, and that's what we teach. That's really what we emphasize in the inner circle program, is how do we make you employable and give you the skills and the insight to understand how the job marketplace works, so that you can always adapt and skate to where the puck is going, rather than be on the back foot and reacting all the time to changes in the market that you can't control, because you can't control the market. You can only control your decisions in the face of those changes in the market.
What an excellent point, eloquently put too. Shout out to Miguel too for that epiphany as well that you kind of
Yeah.
that you had there. The last thing I'll just say is that I hope that if you're listening to this and you are getting into this fear-mongering mind state, one, selfishly, I want more people in this industry because we need a pipeline of talent. And if we keep scaring off an entire generation of people, we're not going to be able to replace ourselves in the future. And we're going to be in a very, very sticky situation. I don't see this going well in 5 to 10 years out. So if you're interested in becoming a software engineer, changing careers, and what we say makes you think, I like what these guys say, I could see myself doing this, schedule a call with us. You can find the link in the show notes, and we're happy to chat with you. Thanks for listening, and thank you, Zubin, for being on the show. Happy to have you. Sure, we'll be talking next week about whatever else. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and if you have a topic you'd like us to chat about, let us know.
Yeah, and reach out on LinkedIn. We're always responsive on that as
For
well.
sure.
And ask the questions, ask the hard questions, because we'll be happy to give you honest answers. Because frankly, and I know you are too, Brian, I'm kind of over all the BS that's been around for a while. Now it's time for some straight talk. There's no cotton wool in this world that's going to sit and protect you and your feelings. This is a marketplace. You've got to compete in it, and you've got to know how to do it. And that's the truth for everybody. No one is spared that pain. So let's get match fit. Let's get serious about it, and build the careers, because you need to know how to compete.
Yeah, I love it. Sounds good, man. Thanks for being on the show. See you guys. Bye.
Do it. Just subscribe. You know you got to do it.